If you do not sleep, you will die. No process in the body can work optimally when you don't sleep.
Now, Eoin is a long-time functional medicine practitioner. He's an expert when it comes to hormones. He used to be Conor McGregor's strength and conditioning coach.
Most of the guys in Ireland that went into the UFC, we were coaching them, and Conor was one of those for 10 years.
We go in deep about the impact of blood sugar on testosterone levels. We look at cholesterol, convenience, and how it's impacting our health.
If you're relying on the coffee, there's an issue.
This is an episode not to be missed. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to another podcast. As always, I'm excited for the guests that I have on this podcast. But today, a guy that I've been looking at a lot of the work that he's been doing, but has been in the industry for longer than myself, which is like there are a few people out there that have been in there longer than since 2006 sort of time. But only actually been exposed to Eoin's work recently. And Eoin is a guy is it 2005 you've been in functional medicine and 96 in the health industry?
Yeah, the health and fitness nutrition world in 1996. And then I went down the rabbit hole that is functional medicine with the IFM in 2005. Yeah.
So we have Eoin Lacey here, who is a strength and performance consultant. That's how it's labeled on the website. But what actually is that?
So initially I started off managing gyms, and then as we all do, we go towards personal training and strength and conditioning. Did that for many years. And S&C is as anyone that's in the field knows, it's a bit of a challenge. But the more and more people I found, I more consult now with teams, consult with corporate wellness programs, companies. I run a chain of performance gyms here in Ireland, but I help people perform better, whether they're an athlete, whether they're an executive client, through nutrition, training, lifestyle, lab testing, supplementation, coaching, breath work, whatever it is for people to perform at their highest potential.
And you're literally like you worked with Olympic athletes. Are you actually Conor McGregor's strength and conditioning coach, or were you Conor McGregor?
I was Conor strength and conditioning coach for 10 years. So most of the guys in Ireland that went into the UFC, we were coaching them, and Conor was one of those for 10 years. We haven't worked. I worked with Conor on the Cowboy fight, which is a bit of a while ago now. And I get drafted in every now and again for consults, but I was his S&C nutrition guy, but no longer.
How are you finding with going from fighters to corporate wellness side of things? But myself personally, I've worked with some pro fighters here in East Anglia area, and like you see like the drive, the determination to be this like top of the level. Are you finding that when you then get the corporate clients, they want to do all these things that the fighters are doing and they just go so extreme?
Yeah, it's funny because I dealt with a lot of athletes in my early career. Then it was more gen pop, but a lot of executives that I work with now, particularly males, they've actually maybe come from a rugby background. So a lot of rugby guys in Ireland will go into investment banking and architecture and construction and so on. So I find a lot of them are driven the very same way. They're very leadership orientated. They're very, project focused, but they burn themselves out. And we can talk a little bit about this. Men, and I include myself in this bracket, we tend to keep running on empty, and the signs are there. Like it's funny. I have a different car at the moment. My car is getting serviced. But when I get into my wife's car, every light flashes up. Like the car is telling her there's something wrong. Now, it needs me to get, I'm not being sexist, it needs me to get into her car and say, listen, babe, this is wrong, tire, oil, whatever it may be. But our body is telling us something's going wrong. Maybe it's our dick isn't working anymore. Maybe it's we're not going to the bathroom. Maybe we're breaking out with psoriasis or eczema. Maybe we're getting heartburn or reflux. But listen, guys, don't wait till your toe falls off before you realize you got blood sugar dysregulation. Don't wait till you're having a heart attack or a stroke before you say, you know what, maybe I should lose a little bit of weight. Listen to your body. And unfortunately, the focus tends to be on work mode. And when we talk about, energy and focus and enjoyment, a lot of people are working for money for their family. And I get that. You have to be focused on that component, but not at the expense of your health. Not at the expense. You can have the most amount of money in the world, but money will not buy you one more minute of time if your time is up. So for me, it's about getting guys to prioritize things. I used to do a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I loved it. But with kids, I've got a big family, 4 kids, 22 years of age down to 1. So it's a big spectrum in our family. But I can't devote 6-7 hours a week to jiu-jitsu when it could be better prioritized with other components. Same with golf. I'm not saying I'm not a golf fan, but I don't have the time for that. So if your health is important, make it a priority. And if it's a priority for you, you'll do it. So men, unfortunately, sometimes they need a bit of a scare factor to put it as a priority, but hopefully coaches like myself and yourself can highlight these areas so people can address them and change the trajectory of their health before they end up in a destination that they can't get out of.
It's something that I'm super, super passionate about. My story is that my dad died when I was 15 and he wasn't overweight. He was 47 years old, but had a drink every now and then, like your typical social drinker, but he was running caravan parks, holiday parks, stressed out with migraine, sleep issues. So I'm trying to do my best to tell these guys to be proactive rather than reactive, because some people need the heart attack to change, right? They need the stroke. They need something to change. But I mean, I'm not a gambler man as such myself, but I wouldn't want to gamble my life that I'm going to still be here after a stroke or heart attack to then make changes. So when you see that, what do you say to a guy that, or what are the signs that someone is actually showing levels of stress being on their body, as in chronic stress?
So there's a multitude of ways that the stress can manifest in somebody's body, and ways that we can sometimes visually see, sometimes we can't. So one of the simple things I do with people is, and let's just me and you do this for fun. If I said to you, and you're a fit and healthy man, I'm sure you look after your nutrition and training. If I was to ask you to scale how healthy you are, how energetic you are out of 5, and let's say 5 is 100% and 4 is 80%, what would you give yourself?
Probably give it like a 3.5.
Okay, so see what you did there? You thought about what were you thinking of? All the things that you don't do. Am I right?
Yep.
You didn't think of all the things you do. But the fact is, you're a health professional. You're qualified. You know this stuff.
Yep.
And you only gave yourself a 3.5. So what I say to people is, how do you score yourself? And they say, I'm going to give myself a 3 is generally what I get off people. And then I say, well, what are you willing to do to get to a 5? Well, maybe I shouldn't drink so much. Maybe you shouldn't smoke weed the weekend. Maybe you shouldn't have a little bit of devil's dandruff every now and again. And when you hear all this, then they start to educate themselves. But when you get to a 4 or when you get to a 5, everything is easier. You're more productive. You're a better leader. You're more profitable. You're better life with your partner, your friends, your kids, everything. But if you're dragging your sorry ass at a 3.5 out of 5 every day, everything is more of a challenge. So when I see people, a few things I looked at: skin, hair, and nails. When I started functional medicine, I didn't have my phlebotomy exam, so I wasn't able to take a lot of bloods. Now I do that a lot, and there's a lot of different testing. But initially, I went down the traditional Chinese medicine route: tongue, eyes, nails, hair, digestion, skin growth, hair loss, hair gain. And all these things can start to show you. So you go to any pub, like where my office is now, there's a lot of pubs just down the road. I walk in there now. What time is it? In the middle of the day. There's going to be a big fella at the bar, big fat belly, no triceps, no legs, no glute, big fat belly. His body is trying to keep him alive now. So your body will constantly adapt to the environment you place it in, whether that's dehydration, whether that's blood sugar dysregulation, whether that's snoring, poor sleep. So if you really look, people are getting big fat bellies, they're losing their muscle mass. If their hair is, getting alopecia, they're getting dry skin, psoriasis, nail fungus, they're if you want to call it their health barometer, their penis isn't working, their libido isn't there at all. The people will see what's going on. It doesn't have to be necessarily an elevation of 10 beats of their heart rate or an elevation of blood pressure, which will be there. But if you don't measure these things, you can't manage them. So for me, I like to say to people, like, how has your health been over the last 2 or 3 years? Like, when do you last consider yourself healthy? And where do you see yourself now in comparison to that person? And they can start to say, wow. Like, men are funny. I don't wear suits that often, but one of my best friends, he's on the gym now. He's getting married next week. And men, we put on a suit not that often. You go and put a suit on and go, check it out, this thing doesn't fit me. Well, women are, if you're wearing suits all the time, that's okay. But men don't assess their body changes over time, whether that's energy, whether that's waste. Now, just so you know, most men aren't putting the trousers around their waist. Let's be honest, it's underneath the belly, it's over. So I think if they look at their skin, hair, and nails is an easy way. Second thing is energy to look at. If you're dipping, if you're relying on the coffee multiple times a day, there's an issue. And for me, sleep and bowel movements are like the crystal ball. That sounds disgusting. I'm sorry, but if you want to see someone's health, Ask them questions about their digestion and their health and their bowel movements, and ask them about their sleep. If you find out these two things aren't in check, they need to be focused.
It's funny. I was speaking to an ex. I live in Norwich. I was speaking to an ex Norwich, what we class as a legend now, as many as like Norwich City Football Club has legends. But I was speaking to him on Tuesday, and he's still really on top of his fitness, shall we say? And I always define health and fitness as different things, right? We can be fit for a sport, but we're not necessarily healthy. And I done a corporate talk, about 3-4 weeks ago, and he wanted to chat afterwards. Absolutely loved how it came across on the talk. But when he was there and he bought my book and was like, yep, like I'm healthy, all these things, no issues with sleep and all this sort of stuff. And one of the things that came up, we were just chatting, just going through it. And he said, yeah, I'll probably wake up about 4 or 5 times during the night. And I'm like, that's stress showing up on your body there. And he said, it's just aging. Now, how do you convince these guys? I suppose it's our job to put the information out and people will come on board eventually. But one of the frustrations I have is, how do we convince these guys that the doctors, the general practitioners, we have these markers and like they're high or low, like, and if they're 0.1 over low, they're not going to say they're low on testosterone or something. But when their doctors are saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with your prostate, so it's just like you're just getting older, you just got a weaker bladder. And how do we then get this, what's the word, authority across to say, look, there is something going on here.
Yeah.
Your doctors kind of missed this fact. That, as I was saying before the call yesterday, someone said that the doctor said his testosterone tests were fine. Now, we didn't go into all the liver and stuff. He'd done that beforehand, but which there were some liver markers there, but his SHBG was high. Total testosterone was a bit low than we'd want it. Like, it wasn't too old. It was like 12, but then the free testosterone was out of range low. Can't remember the exact number, but it came up as low. But the doctor said it's fine because his FSH, LH, his SHBG was in the marker but high, and his total testosterone was fine. How do we then say, look, your doctor said this, but there's other things going on?
Well, see, this is the thing, and the funny thing in the UK and Ireland, in America, they interview their doctors. So the doctor is part of their healthcare system. So when we go to a doctor, the general practice now is the management of disease. Doctors are trying to manage disease. They're not trying to optimize health. And that's I think we need to clarify the difference there. Now, I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Eric Serrano. He's also a good colleague of Brian Walsh.
Yep.
In my opinion, and this isn't what I say, from what they've told me, is you never chase a lab, you chase a person. So if I see your blood sugar is X, that doesn't mean it's always going to be that. That just could be, like, if I take a picture of the Grand Prix, that's what I can tell me who's going to win the race. It's a small snippet. So blood markers, although they're very good, and Brian Walsh will contest that blood is the best marker to take, it's the whole picture. How is that person sleeping? What's that person's energy like? What's that person's libido like? And one of the things that I try to get across to men, like, we're men, we're talking about testosterone and people think of having sex and erections. I get that. But testosterone does so much more in the body. So much more in the body than just, libido and erection. It's the feel-good factor. It's the fulfillment you get from an achievement. It's being present in the moment. It's having that drive, having that enthusiasm, having that empathy, having that balance of your hormones from a hormonal point of view and a neurotransmitter point of view. But I've got guys that they do one task, and I mean that task isn't even across the line, and they're on to the next one. Guys hitting targets, they reach the targets, whatever it may be in business, and they're on to the next target. There's no appreciation, enjoyment, or being in the moment. And so when I see lab work, I do look at it and I do let it guide me, may guide my questions, and may give me some inference of what may be going on. But I listen to the person. I ask them questions. And one thing I learned, and I've learned this from, I've had a lot of mentors, and I'm blessed to have so many. One of the things that I try to do is I tend not to educate people that much. And what I mean by that is, if you can imagine, I should really have a hat. I normally have a hat. And what I do is I say to people, as a coach, as a consultant, as a trainer, as you want to call it, like an expert, there's certain times that people want to hear what you have to say. Mm-hmm. If listeners out there listen to us and we're talking about testosterone or snoring or blood sugar, they'll sink into something that they're interested in. However, as coaches sometimes, and as trainers and as nutritionists, we start telling people, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Well, what might be a better option would be is start to coach them. And a coach is someone that asks them questions and let them come up with the answers. Well, if you're a 3.5 out of 5, what could you do? What is important in your life for you to get to 5? Oh, your kid, you want to have kids. Brilliant. Do you think if someone that has 3.5 out of 5 can have kids good, or success of fertility is enhanced? No. If you're a pro athlete, do you think that you're more risk of getting injured if you're 3.5? Oh, yes, I am. So you're trying to bounce it back onto them. So for us, what I try and do is I try to find out what this person is dealing with. I call it the magic wand question. It's a nice pen, but I asked them, this is the magic wand. What are the 3 health goals you would like? I'm not trying to put it down, but a lot of people say, oh, I want to be leaner on. I want to have more energy. Then I ask them, is I want to be happy. And I go, okay, do you think being happy should be number 3 on that wish list? Do you think being lean, because I've got guys that are shredded, I've got rugby guys, soccer guys, wrestling guys that are in great shape and miserable.
Yep.
Getting abs doesn't mean you're happy. So what I say was, well, let's not prioritize them as in 1, 2, and 3. Let's just have them as a goal. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to invest? And people say, oh, it's expensive for supplements. Oh, it's expensive for this. Tell you what's expensive. Being sick is expensive. So like your absenteeism for work, when you're on it and you're in work and you're switched on and you're in that flow, that happens much more common for someone that's a 5 than a 4 than a 3 than a 2. So for me, instead of trying to push my opinion onto them, I try and find out what their ultimate goal is. I try and find out what they're willing to do, and I let them try to come up with solutions of what they could do, and then I might add on top of that. So for example, you said to me, oh, you're 3.5 out of 5 because you don't do your sauna therapy, or you don't do your recovery, or you're not compliant with your nutrition or your supplements. Well, what are you willing to do? I'm willing to take my supplements every morning. I'm willing to get my massage once a week. I'm willing to do this. Brilliant. Let's do that for a week and we'll check back in. And then I might add something on top of that. But if I say to you, no, take your supplements every day, go to bed early, you're like, oh, whatever. But when they come up with a plan, they're sort of telling themselves, and people don't like to let themselves down. They let us down, not go to bed at 10 o'clock. They let us down by having a few more glasses of wine than they should, because we've put the importance on it. But when they put the importance on it, it's a completely different angle altogether.
That's powerful. That really powerful. I've known so many guys, as you say, that when we get into the executive side and they're CEOs, they're executives, and I've found it exactly that they don't like to be told what to do. They're the guys running the business. They tell people what to do.
Yeah.
So if you get them to tell themselves what they do. So another question I ask is, what would your wife say? So when they're like, oh, I don't snore or anything like that, or what would your wife say? That's a powerful one when they get back on that. So going back to testosterone and looking at the market of testosterone, everyone's like been saying that it's lower now than it has been 20, 30, 40 years ago. Are you seeing examples of that? Like when you look at like average tests and things, like when you look at total tests, free testosterone, are you seeing that guys now have lower testosterone than say from the 70s and 80s?
Well, see, I can only base it on my judgment. So when I've been coaching people, have I seen a trend or a symptom, if you want to call it the Adam test, where people are declining in testosterone? Yes, I have. Have I seen people having more, problems with fertility? Yes, I have. Have I seen people having more problems putting on muscle mass? Yes, I have. Now, can I say categorically that it's been declining at this pace? Yes and no. So I'm not sure of your circle of friends, but the majority of my circle of friends are maybe ex-athletes, some are currently athletes, some are coaches. So I'm not in the circle of, you would call it gen pop. If we went to a pub, I'm sure I'd meet up with those people. So my circle is already artificially, it's not a normal circle. However, I was a manager of Ireland's largest gym for many years. We 10,500 members. So you're seeing a lot of people. You're coaching a lot of people. You're doing nutrition with a lot of people. And there's trends. There really is. And back in the day, there was a big thing on don't eat fat. Fat's bad for you. Have as much carbs as you want. Be much more focused on aerobic exercise. Strength training was more for powerlifters and bodybuilders. And then the problem then when it comes to strength training, a lot of people still train like powerlifters and bodybuilders. Just because powerlifters and bodybuilders use barbells and dumbbells doesn't mean that you can only do bodybuilding and powerlifting training. The training has to be specific to the person and to someone's outcome, someone's goal, someone's capacity, range of motion, and so on. So I think for me, I have seen a gradual decline. I've also seen an increase in people starting possibly steroids early. I've seen people being more exposed to chemicals than ever before. My second youngest daughter, she's 9. A lot of people in her class are now having their period.
Wow.
So even the age, the average age,
9.
9. The average age apparently in Europe now is 8. So
Wow.
this is the thing. So, and then we have all these endocrine disruptors. We have all this BPA. We have all this toxins in the body that are interfering with the pool of hormones in our body. So am I saying that's having an impact? 100%. The Institute for Functional Medicine, in relation with the EWG, the Environmental Working Group.org, they have tons of research showing the plastics in foods, chemical exposure. So let's say you get a shampoo that you put on your hair when you have a shower. They've tested the individual ingredients 100%. And normally how it works on a label, the highest concentration of the ingredient, the earlier in the list it is. Now, at no point, let's say we say VO5 or Pantene or Tresemme, whatever, you know, my wife's a hairdresser, I know all the names of the shop, but if you think of those shampoos, the individual ingredients have been tested. That's been sure. However, the ingredients together have never been tested. So it's a concoction. So remember, Dr. Robert Roundtree talked a lot about on the advanced module on detoxification. He said, if you put a dog into a shop and close the door and then open it an hour later and there's no damage, you can't say the dog didn't do any damage. You open the door, put a cat in, close the door, the cat's in there, does nothing. You put the two of them in together, and this reaction, whether it be aluminium or mercury or lead or cadmium or parabens or bisphenol A or whatever it may be, is you don't know how they're reacting to the body. So, and remember, like, I'm 42 years of age. I've been on this planet for 42 years. I've been eating every day for 42 years. I've been drinking every day for 40, not alcohol, but I've been drinking. So my body has a bioaccumulated X amount of toxins, X amount of waste products, both from the food I've eaten, the air I've breathed in and out. So you don't know what that's going to manifest for somebody. But I see less strength training. I see lower libido. I see more overweight. I see less focus, less drive. So I have seen that trend in that direction. And when it comes to the guys that are possibly financially in a position to come to see a coach or a nutritionist or a consultant, they've been at a high peak or a high performer for a long time, and those high performers sometimes have had a certain journey in their life. They've accumulated certain miles, if you want, on their clock, and sometimes you need to undo some of those things. And testosterone decline, I found, has been an issue for a lot of these guys.
And it's also not undoing it overnight, right? It takes a long while. If you say 42 years, 37 for myself, that it's not happened overnight. It's happened over decades. So how do we do that overnight? We don't.
And this is what I love. So I have this little sort of analogy I use in the corporate world. So when you go to a business meeting in the corporate world, who was at that business meeting? Only people that add value should be at that meeting. Not the cleaners, not the landscapers, the people that have value to that meeting, whatever that agenda is. And they deserve to be there. They didn't get there because of 12-week transformation. They didn't get there for a two-week boot camp. So if you're healthy and happy, horny, lean, muscular, strong, fit, resilient, you are that because of the decisions you've made on a consistent basis for a long period of time. You can't expect to get fit and healthy and be in that meeting if you've only done 12 weeks of nutrition or 12 weeks of training. People are, apart from diseases, people are where they are from a health point of view because of the accumulation of the decisions they make every single day. So Jack Canfield has said it best: we're 100% responsible for where we are in our health journey. And if you constantly drink alcohol, don't exercise, whether you choose to drink or not drink, whether you choose to exercise or not exercise, that's still a decision. So what I say to people is not be a man, be a woman. Make a priority, make your health a priority. We have a slogan outside in the gym. It's from James Wilson. I'm sure you've read the Adrenal Fatigue book. But he talks about take your health seriously or take it somewhere else. I'm not interested in a time waster that's going to waste my time trying to support, help, encourage, and coach these people unless they actually value their own health. They value their own health with their kids and their partner and so on, their business. So for me, it's about identifying what can we do on a consistent basis. Jose Antonio has a great one. The MD principle, he calls it. What's maintainable and what's doable. And we need to do it consistently well over a long period of time to manifest the adaptations in our body. So for me, people have a lot of control over their health, but they need to grab the steering wheel, and crashing isn't the time where you should grab onto the steering wheel.
I'm assuming that it's not always training that you look at straight away, because when someone comes to me and they'll tell me, I haven't got time to go to the gym and all this sort of stuff. First off, we know that there's going to be time that they can get in there if we look at where their energy is low and if we improve that. But where do you start working with someone that is just so convinced that, like yesterday, I was at a business leaders lunch. We managed to play a game of cricket on the county cricket game, and that was fun. But I was in the overs for the first time. I was with the old guys, and but then you see like people that can't run for the cricket ball, and they're completely out of breath after running like 30 meters and so on. But people that aren't doing the work, I got asked yesterday from someone that was at a talk I done last March, not this March, last March. And they still said, I'm wanting to book in with you at some point. And I've tried to get him to book in. He's, I just haven't got the time. I haven't got the time to get to the gym. And I just said, look, we wouldn't focus on the gym straight away. There's going to be so many more low hanging fruits. Yeah. What are you saying to those guys, and how would you start with those guys?
So I try to use a simple analogy if I can. If you've heard this before, I apologize. I like to use it what I call a health sat nav. We have one, a location where we currently are now, two, our destination. And when we get into the car, unfortunately for a lot of people in this industry, they put exercise and they put nutrition as the two front people in the car. We're going to kill them at the gym. We're going to go on a calorie deficit diet. We're going to do this in the diet. And then in the back seat of the car, we have supplementation, we have lifestyle, and then generally just some sort of medical test that we do. For me, before we go off on a journey, I want to see what's going on with that person. I want to see what that car is made up of. I want to see what mileage they have, how their body is moving. For some people, it could just be your yoga, Pilates, or some HIIT training for 20 minutes every single morning. It could be a cold shower. It could be some breath work. But there needs to be a plan. So I find out what that person is willing to do. Now, this might sound unusual to your listeners. I prefer people to do some sort of, I'm going to say, activity or exercise at least 6 days a week. Because if you're doing something 6 days a week, maybe you're walking, maybe you're doing yoga, maybe you're doing some HIIT, maybe you're doing some flexibility, maybe you're doing some cold shower. It's easy for me to change that 10 or 15 minute or 20-minute workout to something else. But if you have someone training 4 days a week and you want to add a 14 or a 15, they're like, no, I can't do it. So for me, I meet them where they're at. What are you willing to do? What are you able to do? Can you do 20 minutes of exercise every single morning? Can you skip? Can you bike? Can you run on the spot? Can you do interval training? I'll send them programs. So I meet them there. Then I tend to look at nutrition. Then I tend to look at sleep. But if you come into me and you're not sleeping, that's my priority. If you come in, and I had a lady earlier on today, and I said, like, how's your bowel movement? Are you regular? She says, at least 2. I said, 2 movements a day? No, 2 a week. Well, that's the low hanging fruit for me. So for what I say to people out there, there's easy things to do. Don't put off going to see a coach. Don't put off going to see a doctor. Don't put off going to see a nutritionist because of what they're going to put on you. A real expert will listen to you, and we call it a performance plan, a personalized performance plan. Whatever your goal is, I'll put a plan in place with you. And then as we go along, maybe we need to reroute. We'll change it. We reroute it. We reroute it. It's never a straight line. You know, it's never a straight line from A to B, but at least you're moving. Yeah. You have to move every day, get busy, getting better. There's always something that we can do better, whether it be our nutrition, whether it be our decision making. As Brian Walter says, sometimes you can't get good food, don't eat anything. So you're in like, when's the last time people ate something by accident? They don't. Whether they consciously make a decision or not, it's still a decision. So for me, what I try and do is meet people, see where their low-hanging fruit is. Sometimes it's stretching. Like, I ask people in the gym all the time, are you strong enough? Yeah, I'm pretty strong. You know, have you got good range of motion? Yeah, good range of motion. My flexibility is a big problem. Well, I don't see flexibility in your program. Or recovery. I feel tired all the time. I'm getting injuries. And I see their weekly schedule and they have off days. An off day isn't a recovery day. You have to do something to recover. If it's sauna, we've got a float tank across the road. We've got a fire infrared sauna here. We've got Normatex. You have to ask the body to recover and do something to stimulate that. But with a good coach, with a good nutritionist, with a good consultant, you can get a plan that will fit your schedule, that will be easy to follow, that is aligned with your goals, and you have that person to rely on for support, whether it be a wearable or a Whoop, whatever it may be. There's devices and there's systems out there that you can help people, but it has to be driven for that person, it has to be focused on that person, and we need to listen to the person's body and coach with them to make sure we make the correct, adjustments to the journey so we get there in time.
Hey, I wanted to give a big shout out to one of the supporters of the podcast, Human Tonic Greens. Now, I've been using Human Tonic Greens for a long while. And when I started speaking to the guy that runs the company, I knew that they would be the right brand to help support the podcast. When I actually look at what they do, their whole formula is open and honest. There's no proprietary blends. If you look on the ingredients in the back, there's everything that's actually in there at the amounts that they are in there. Now, it's got loads of vitamins. It's got 38 different superfoods. It's got minerals. It's got no rubbish in here. Everything that's going to help your gut with the health that it needs. It's also got nootropic blends, and those things are going to help you with your brain function, your cognition, help your focus, help you manage the ability to deal with stress, and also help you sleep. So get over to humantonic.com and put in the code OM15 to get your money off now. Sleep. We're talking about recovery here. I was reading, I think it's Russell Foster's Lifetime, the book that came out last couple of months or so. And he talks about 67% of people being sleep deprived in a Aviva study, and says that sleep deprivation is classed as 7 hours or less regularly. And it's so common that I'm seeing 5-6 hours, and people are like hanging that as like a war medal, and it's a badge of honor on their sleeve to say that I'm surviving, I'm thriving, even like I'm 4, 5, 6 hours sleep. How important is sleep for recharging, not just for testosterone, but for overall health?
This is the thing. So I have these 5 lodgements, if you want, we call them 5 lodgements for your health bank account. We have sleep, we have air, we've water, we've macronutrients and micronutrients. If you do not sleep, you will die. Like if you've ever had young kids, no process in the body can work optimally when you don't sleep. And one of the biggest things that sleep does is it resets our circadian rhythm. And we have, depending on what research you look at, around 37 trillion cells in the body. Some say more, some say less. We won't disagree on a few trillion. But the fact is, they're regulated by your sleep. Your sleep cycle, we have muscle cycles, we've liver cycles, we've hormonal cycles, we've menstrual cycle, we've all these cycles going on. And when your sleep is not regulated, if it's not deep, if it's not consistent, if it's not to a certain time frame, every process of those 37 trillion cells the next day aren't optimal. Now, people will say to me, oh, Margaret Thatcher got by in 4 hours sleep. Well, that's not a good example. But what I'd say is 4 hours sleep, just because you can get by, I don't want to get by. Yeah. I want to thrive. Now, this is the thing. And you're right, people use it as a badge of honor. Yeah, I got by in 4 hours sleep. And a few things three things, in my opinion, when you put stress onto an executive, 3 things happen. They skip meals, they stay up late, and they get up early. So all of a sudden, they're basically taking away all the things that help them thrive. So for me, sleep is fundamental. And like it's interesting, we went through a phase a few years ago of putting Libre monitors or blood glucose monitors on people. A lot of them, like I'm talking hundreds of people. And what we found is, and Brian Walsh talks a lot about this in his blood sugar course, where we have what's called force phase insulin response. And what I say to people is, imagine when you eat food, guys, any breakfast, let's say it's an A+ breakfast you have in the morning, and the body says, oh, here's all these lovely breakfasts, avocado, salmon, whatever it may be, and the pancreas says, oh, there's some insulin I made last night, you digest that, great job, lovely food. However, if you've got poor sleep and you eat the same breakfast, it goes into the digestive system, the pancreas is like, here, oh shit, I haven't got any insulin because I didn't get deep sleep, I didn't make it last night, and then it's reactively making it. So your body is reacting, it's not responding to the day, it's always in the back foot. And that goes with sleep. If you're snoring, you're not getting deep sleep, you're not oxygenating the body goes into a hypoxic state at certain times. It's stressful to the brain. The lymphatic system, which is the lymphatic system of the brain, your brain shrinks at nighttime, and that cerebrospinal fluid, we want to call it massages, shampoos your brain, gets rid of all the beta amyloid plaque and get your brain switched on for the next day. If you're not doing that, your body's waking up, it's getting rust. Imagine that car. Like, what was your first ever car? Do you remember?
Nice gold Pug 106 with a big bore exhaust.
Brilliant. I have a Volkswagen Golf. Love that car. But I'm sure you're not driving that now, are you? No, I'm not driving my car. But we're still in the same engine. We're still in the same car. So by not sleeping at night time, we accumulate rust. And this is the thing. Matthew Walker talks a lot about it. You can't catch up on the sleep on Sunday that you missed out on Monday.
Yeah.
The cells that wanted to recover on Monday can't get recovered on Sunday because they needed to be done there and then. And even the sleep hygiene of having the same sleep cycle. If you've got kids, you know you need to have that routine on a regular basis. But the sleep from a mental restoration, from a physical restoration, from a performance, it's fundamental. And for some reason, people feel, oh, I can get by on less sleep. I don't want people to get by. I want them to thrive. And that, for me, if it is an issue, we address it straight off the bat.
And on that note, a question you've probably been asked loads of times. You've had to deal with it yourself. And I got asked this at the talk I'd done a month ago is, well, I try my best. What if I have kids? In regards to sleep.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, I've got kids. 4 kids. I think I have kids nearly I feel like my whole life. You can 100% deal with it. You 100% can. Now, the more, and this is the thing, one of the clients I had earlier on today, she has a sleep therapist coming in because her baby isn't sleeping correctly. There's always ways around things. There's always ways around things. When the baby's sleeping, you can sleep. It may be broken sleep, and maybe broken throughout the day, but you definitely can get into some sort of routine. But you have to actively make a decision for that to happen. And the more into a rhythm you can be in, and the more, so for example, I've got guys that travel all the time. And I know that when they have more routine and sleep hygiene when they're in Dublin, when they're off to Hong Kong or off to America, they're better able to get over the jet lag when they get back. But if they've got shitty routine here, it's even more manifested when they go over there. So for me, it's like flexibility. The more flexible I make you, then when you are called upon to be more flexible, the better it is. So improving the sleep and making good sleep hygiene decisions regularly allows you that flexibility that when it is bad, you can bounce back. But unfortunately, most people are already bad. And then when it goes off with a jet lag, or I do watch a lot of UFC, but I stop watching it at night time because it messes up my weekend. I'll just pencil it and watch it the next day. But even stuff like that can throw off your week. Mm-hmm. If you're tracking your HRV, if you're tracking any barometers or markers, you can see that does throw things off. So people have to come up with a plan that works for them. That could be bed at 10 o'clock. That could be bed at, 11, 12 o'clock. That could be up at 4, whatever it is. But it's the routine, it's the rhythm, it's the routine, it's the sleep hygiene we're looking for.
Something that's powerful, actually, you mentioned there of HRV when people are tracking, and you can actually see or say to them that, how does your HRV change when you have 1 drink or 2 drinks? That's been powerful to actually using that bit of technology, that little metric. Well, I say little big metric, really. And then they can see their drink limit. So they can see that it's going from, maybe it's still low in the 40s, and actually it goes down to like 20, or even like it's normally in 20s. And you think, well, like ideally I would want my clients to be at 60 and above regularly, but if we get you into 30, you're going to feel so much different already. And then into 40s regularly. But how much is that 1 drink or 2 drink literally dipping that?
And this is the key point. So when I have a client of mine, he's an accountant, and he's like, sometimes he starts to have a drink on a Thursday night. I'm like, you can't, David, you can't have a drink on Thursday night. Reason being is, if you have it on Thursday, you have it on Friday, you have it on Saturday, you have Sunday. He's an accountant. He says, I said, that's over half the week. No, it's not. I said, if you don't understand 3 is bigger than, 4 is bigger than 3, you're in trouble. But the fact is, and I put on those Libres on his arm as well. And when I said, okay, we need to cut our alcohol down to these time frames. So I even said to him, drink a gin and tonic, drink your red wine, drink your white wine, drink your beer, and see what it does. Not all the one night, guys. I'm not saying go off. I'm just saying I wanted him to see what his blood sugar was doing and what his HFV was doing with those alcohol. So he really realized when he's drinking white wine, it was going through the roof. When he's having yogurt and cereal stuff in the morning, it was going through the roof. So then he started to say, actually, I shouldn't be doing this. So I tried to make him more noticeable of the figures of what he was doing. So because he's an accountant, he's seen his HRV was compromised. And this is the thing. Let's say me and you, we check our HRV and we're on the whoop and we have a percentage. And let's say we're at 80%. We'll go out for a few beers. Don't feel great the next day. We're probably down into the 40s. Next day we bounce back.
Yep.
But that's if you're in the 80s. But most of these guys are in the 60s or in the 50s. And they the next day they're down into the 17s and 18s. And then all of a sudden then, they make bad decisions then the next day. And then it's Wednesday before they feel right again. And Thursday they're back on it. And because they're in the work mode, they just keep going. And see, that's not okay for me. So for me, I want a peak performer. Peak performer for me is someone that can perform a peak performance consistently. not the player that's good in the first half and shit in the second half, not the player that can have 10 games of the season well and the rest of them he's off injured. We want to turn up every day. So for me, it's about getting the habits, instilling them into the people to know what their alcohol. And this is the thing: if you're having a glass of wine with your partner, one glass of wine at dinner, and have a walk after dinner, you go home, it's no problem. It's having 2 bottles of wine on your own or with somebody else, or there's a few beers with the lads and shots. That's what it steamrolls.
Yeah, it all adds up, and it adds up there. So touching on nutrition, we said about sleep, and then we mentioned about that the Freestyle Libres as well, like with the glucose levels. How much is a good glucose level, like good steady glucose levels? How much are they going to impact your testosterone levels if we can improve them?
Massively. So one of the biggest things when it comes to blood glucose and its impact on testosterone is the fluctuations. So what we want is not to be like a dancer. We don't want tsunamis. Tsunamis are terrible. We want waves. We want constant control. And what happens is when we have a high spike of insulin, a big drop down, we're having hormonal dysregulation because we're having cortisol, glucagon, epinephrine, human growth hormone, all fluctuating up and down to balance our blood sugar levels. And cortisol, as we know, people think it as a bad hormone. Cortisol is not bad in any way, shape, or form.
We need it.
We need it. Otherwise, we'd be still in bed, let's be honest. So we need that cortisol up in the morning. We need that moving. But cortisol is a glucocorticoid. And if you're using your hormones to manage blood sugar, your body is in survival mode. Like high blood sugar or low blood sugar can kill you. So if your body's constantly under stress to kill you, why on earth would it be releasing optimal levels of testosterone to make you thrive down the line? I say to people, you can have big biceps and big glutes and big pec, but as soon as you get sick, your body's going to go, give me those amino acids. Your body will break you down to keep you alive now. So if you have fluctuating blood sugar levels, your body's priority is stabilizing your blood sugar levels. It's not the anabolic effect and the release and secretion and the absorption of optimal levels of testosterone, because its priority is keeping you alive now. Having said that, we've got balanced levels of glucose, we've got good levels of amino acid for sleeping well, we've got the right training stimulus. Our testes will say, hey, we're in a good place. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
So what about, so you've got glucose, like we can improve glucose levels, and chances are as well, so many times that no doubt you see it, that just people aren't eating enough protein and they label it as a bodybuilding nutrient, right?
Like, this is the thing. People say to me, oh, protein, that's way too much protein. For me, eating protein at every single meal, there's not way too much protein. But the majority of people need, well, in my opinion, people need protein intake at every single meal, 100%. Need to be high quality protein. But a lot of men, what I find is if you look at their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the majority of quality protein that they consume is at dinner.
Yep.
They have a little bit of shitty, maybe there's milk or some dairy or something coming in the morning. Maybe there's a sandwich with a little bit of chicken or ham or something at lunchtime. And then they might have a steak or mince or something fish at nighttime. That's not enough. And what happens is that bolus amount of food, not only from a calorie point of view, but from a macronutrient and protein point of view, impacts the digestion throughout the nighttime. So for me, I like a good level of protein 3 to 4 times a day coming in. And if I was completely honest, I'm sorry for the vegans out there, vegetarian, I like animal protein. I like eggs, I like meat, I like fish. Okay, pea, rice, protein, I see you can complement it, you can get there. Supplements, I realize you can get there. But for me, I want multitude of quality, hormone-free, quality meat coming in multiple times a day.
How are you seeing that? We touched on veganism there, and like not to like just completely label that, because people can be healthy if they've got the right, I say dedication to their diet and supplementation protocol, but I'm seeing a lot of people aren't because they're just cutting out the meat. But other diets as well, things like carnivore, ketogenic diet, doing like fasting and things like that. How are you seeing their impact on testosterone levels?
So this is one thing. So like over the last few years with all the lockdowns and shit shows that were going on, I had a lot of people at home going, I'm going to try this carnivore diet. I'm going to try this ketogenic diet. I'm going to try this intermittent fasting diet. And I was getting labs sent to their houses and they were doing labs and so on. Few things that I'm just so like, I'm not necessarily against any one of those methods. And like the carnivore diet, I understand why people would do it. So I think it's the best for everybody. No, if you're the liver king and you're whacked out of 10 grand worth of steroids every month, that's okay. But even like for me and you, we knew that. We didn't need to be told to debunk that he's taking juice. Of course he's taking juice, you know? So, but other people, and that's why the problem is now, people are getting exposed to information from people that think you're an expert. You're not an expert because you're fucking eating testicles. No, that doesn't qualify you. But for me, when it comes to any sort of dietary change like that, I do think eliminating, like, first of all those diets, majority of those diets are eliminating processed foods. So when you eliminate processed foods, I think you're stepping in the right direction. The more you go towards whole foods, I think you're on the right direction there. I don't, I'm going to say this now, I don't have anyone on a pure ketogenic diet. I have nobody on a pure carnivore diet. For me, it's a real food diet.
Yeah.
I do like vegetables, I do like fruits, I do like meats, fish, and so on. I don't have anyone on any sort of elimination bar, maybe gluten, dairy, MSG, peanuts, shrimp, that they have a problem with.
If they have signs of it, right?
Exactly. But if you're a vegetarian or vegan, I've no problem with those people. And I've actually, most of those people I've found, they're more invested in their health. But my suggestion to them and what we do is we do Genova metabolomics test where we have all their amino acids, all their omegas, all their vitamins and minerals. So then they can design a diet to best complement what they have. But it's harder. It's not easier. It's harder to be healthy on those diets because the food isn't, full of all the spectrum of amino acids, full of all the spectrum of fatty acids that they need. So they do need to complement it. But unless they know, they can't devise a plan. So for me, I try to make things very simple. Real food, multiple times a day, even size meals. I do like quality proteins. And a friend of mine, Dr. Serrano, he's quite a religious guy. I'm not that way inclined, but he says God made protein and fat together. You'll never find protein and fat not together in the real world. And I've tried to find it. I haven't found it yet. Yeah. And God didn't make protein shakes, so I'm going to leave it. So eggs and meat and fish, they all have everything together. So meat and fish and vegetables, if it grew, generally it's good for you. I made a joke once at a seminar and it backfired completely. I said, you've never seen a Red Bull tree, have you? Or a monster bush. I went, look, that didn't come across the way I meant a monster can bush is what I meant to say. But the fact is, people need to be eating more real food. And this is the thing. If you put down 10,000 food items on a table in front of any of your clients right now, they know what's good, they know what's bad. And even some people say, oh, you can't say good food and bad food. Okay, what's optimal, nutritionally dense food and what's probably delicious but maybe void of nutrients? So people know what's optimal food. And I don't think it should be complicated. But certain people may be more carnivore related. Some people do better on fats. And I have athletes like that. I work in Azerbaijan quite a lot with wrestlers. And some of those guys are very, fellas from Uzbekistan and Iran, they tend to do better on certain fat type diets than Europeans would, or Irish people, or UK people. So for me, you do need a bit of trial and error, but it's not that spectrumly different.
Yeah, I think we don't have to overcomplicate things. I had a guy come to me last year and he said, have you seen this Brian Johnson's protocol? And I don't know if you've seen this like multi-million-dollar protocol that Brian Johnson has done. And he was on Steve Bartlett. I haven't listened to the episode yet, but basically he's like injecting his 18-year-old son's blood back into him after like transfusion.
This the 10X systems?
The 10 that's Gary Brecker, that one.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so Brian Johnson's basically spent millions on this protocol. And he showed me this protocol and said, how can we implement this protocol with myself? I was like, honestly, it's probably not going to work. Like for starters, like why is he taking melatonin every single night if he's supposed to be at the top of his health? Would he not need that if he was really like being able to sleep effectively? Then why we put melatonin in there? And we ended up doing an Array 10, Cyrex Labs. I think it's the Array 10's the food one. So we've done like a leaky gut one. Leaky gut came back. Then there was autoimmune antibodies as well, which they were heart and also with blood clotting tissues. So, and it had like 3 vaccines as well. So I'm not going to say anything else about that. And then, so there was some issues going on there, but we looked at his actual food test, knowing that if there's a load here, and these are all foods that were in this vegan style diet that this guy had done. And I said, like, we need to get you off this vegan diet. And I wouldn't necessarily try and push someone unless we have that lab data there. But if we think like loss of immune tolerance, 25 or more foods, there was like 80 foods in there. It's crazy. Like 80 foods were coming up, that every single thing. We can't take all these foods out. He wouldn't be eating anything. So we have to improve what's going on underneath. So, like, are you finding that social media can be beneficial. Like now you've been on social media for a little while, right? But
I
like
want
it's
to.
also very detrimental as well.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I think like the internet in general, like Dr. Google can make you shit yourself and give you cancer and all sort of stuff. So for me, I only got into social media personally when I 2 years ago. So when it comes to stuff, like to be honest with you, people like me and you, we get exposure to other people, and clients see us, and we get better business
Good.
from it.
Yeah.
But there's the flip side to the coin, and the other side of the coin, I have guys show me videos of this fella Sean from Ireland, Sean Paul check a video on the Big Mac and how he slagged off a Big Mac and said it was the exact same as an avocado, rubbish like that. But the fact is, yes, I think there's more people out there that can be influencing other people that they shouldn't be. But I think it's down to us then to censor what we listen to and what we learn from. Okay, it's fair enough, brands and stuff like that. But when you start to listen to someone else's nutritional advice, when you start to hear to someone's dental advice, yes, or training advice, you go, that should really be specific. And I think for people out there hearing other stuff, I do watch it, listen, learn from it, then go to a professional. Don't start to implement somebody else's plan because you've seen this guy get good results on it. Because you do not know the road that person has been under. You don't know their medical history. You don't know their gut permeability. You don't know their cross reactivities. You don't know their molecular mimicry. You don't know their nutritional styles. You don't know their anything about them. So for me, when people start to follow stuff like that, that's when it's just going. Those people at some point will become people like me and you because they've messed up what they've gone on. So I think it's good to be aware of stuff like that, and it's good maybe to get exposure to it. But then get some education from professionals before you implement it. But I see people like that all the time. This Ozempic that everyone's taking to lose weight, when there's so many other things that could be done before that. There's so many things that have less side effects. If it's part of a plan with a physician or a doctor or whatever it may be, is that it can be part of a treatment plan. But just following somebody else's plan will not get them to the destination that they're looking for.
It's like we're seeing people chasing the dopamine, right? We're seeing people chasing that 75 hard, like when they're going through this protocol of trying to work out twice a day when they can't even work out 3 times a week. And I think it's people have to fall off so many times before they then will come and think, actually, those foundations need to actually be in place. So I've got 2 more questions that I'd like to ask. I'm just aware of your time. Is that we touched on convenience just before we came on here, and it was a worrying stat that I've seen recently. I heard on someone's podcast was that 2% of the Western world would pick the stairs over an escalator, which is scary to me. That there's 1 or 2 flights of stairs and there's no like knee injuries or something like that going on. Why are we picking like the convenience? How are you seeing convenience impacting our health, both hormonally, mentally, all these different ways, physically?
So normally when you're like, I say it to people like their mobile phone. So let's say, for example, you woke up this morning and your mobile phone was at 20%.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you'd be like going, why didn't I charge it last night? I need to charge my phone because I need that phone to be charged for me to do my job. A lot of people are going around at 20%. And when you're at 20%, we have what's called decision fatigue. We're fatigued. We won't go the extra mile. Sometimes we don't go to the gym. We stay in bed later. We watch television for longer. We're trying to switch our brain off. We're ordering food on Just Eat, on Deliveroo, because we couldn't be asked to cook it. So when your battery is low, naturally our body will have less energy and focus to do the stuff that we know we should be doing. So first of all, I think energy management is crucial. So when you can control someone's energy, you can more motivate them. Now, and there's a really good book on the myth of motivation. Fuck motivation. Motivation won't get you to the gym every single day. It's consistency, it's determination, it's to get up and go. So for me, what I say to people is, what are your downfalls? What are your derailers? Oh, when I get home, I'm knackered. There's no food in the fridge. I'm going to order Deliveroo. So, okay, or Just Eat. Okay, well, what can we order that's better? And we break it down. Then we say, okay, well, let's get food into the fridge so when you get home, it's there. Maybe it's like a healthy meal you can reheat or whatever it is. But people are going for convenience stuff. I remember I did a lot of work in Ilico over in Sweden many years. And we're in the airport, and I remember this clearly. We're in the airport, and the owner of Ilico, he's passed away now, Leonard, all his staff were there. And I've been teaching for the whole time. It was a busy week, and all his staff went on the stairs. And I stood back and just watched all his staff, escalator, three escalators up or stairs, and all the staff went up. And he said, Owen, all my staff, if they're ever wearing a Lego t-shirt, they can never take an escalator. They had to take the stairs. I thought that was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
He also flew economy with all his staff. He never flew business when he's with his staff. So I thought that was pretty cool. Very nice guy. But people are always going for the easy option. You know, my wife will drive around the car park. They just park closest to the shopping center door. I'm like, what do you do? I just park down the end all the time, right? So people will go an extra mile for convenience. But I think that's the habit. I think that's trying to save energy. We all want to try to minimize the energy expenditure, but walking upstairs, movement, you know, like we have a corporate gym in the city center, and we have walking on Wednesdays. So every Wednesday after lunch, I meet them all there and we walk and talk. We don't talk about religion, politics, COVID, or work. And no one can bring a phone. Just detox. It's a lovely park right in front of the building. So I think people need to put in place things to get them up and moving. Stairs, escalators, lying in bed too long, or even watching television. I'm sure the listeners have watched television and be flicking through the stuff and go, what was I even watching? They're watching television just to turn their brain off. But if they had a 10-minute meditation, or they did some stretching on the floor, or a cold shower, or went for a walk, they'd be much more, you know, restored and revitalized than watching television. And that Netflix bar loading the next episode, it's too much effort to even say no. And they watch it because it comes back on.
Yeah.
So for me, what I do is I identify where people could maybe increase their steps, or maybe increase their movement, or if they're going out for dinner, how they could walk home afterwards, or shopping center, whatever it is. But we want to instill activity. One of the principles of training, reversibility. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you're not up and down the stairs, don't expect to be able to go up and down the stairs. You know, so for me, it's about challenging people all the time.
That's powerful there. You've kind of maybe answered this question from that last question, but of all the things we've spoken about in this podcast or in this episode, if there was one thing that you would recommend to people to do first to improve their health, I suppose it depends on the person. Like, I always like that answer of it depends seems to be big in the health industry, but there's one thing you could do to improve testosterone, to improve just health in general, what would it be?
So I'm gonna answer this with a bit of a caveat. So I have this diary. I'm not promoting the diary. I'm not affiliated with them at all. It's called a full focus planner. And in the
Michael
diary,
Hyatt's.
Yeah, Michael Hyatt's. Yeah. So I love the diary. I have used it for years. But one of the things that it made me do, and I've always had a diary from when I've ever worked. I didn't like mobile phones when they came out because it would get me all the time, particularly when you work in a gym and a manager, you're getting phone calls all the time. But one of the things in the diary that I have is the first page is your goals. Now, that could be body composition goals, that could be financial goals, that could be marital goals, that could be time with your kids. I don't care what they are. And we all wear different hats as a brother, as a son, as a father, as a friend, as a whatever it is. So for me, I have my goals set down. Then, most importantly, I have what I call my ideal week, what he calls is the ideal week. And I've planned, and I challenge anyone out there, please do this and see what happens. Write down the best feckin' week of your life. I mean, like training, nutrition, date night, study, money you've earned, you know, stuff you've learned, time you spent with your friends, your family, whatever it may be, and just write it down. I guarantee, and I say this now, I guarantee the following week will be closer to that week than ever before. And what happens is when you program something in your mind, like I'm driving this rental car at the moment, and everywhere I go, I see that car. Because it's in my mind, it's the reticular activating system. So if you program yourself for success with nutrition, with training, with engagement with your family and friends, like my wife can ring me and she can say, hey, I know whether she's happy, she's horny, she wants money, whatever it is from one hey. So our engagement with people, we give off energy to people. We really do what we vibrate. So when someone comes into you, you can either be a positive vibration to them or a negative. But if you have your whole week planned, you can slip, you can slide, you can duck, because you know what's going to happen. I know what is lunchtime. I know it's training. After I finish with you now, I'm going to go lifting with the lads because I have that programmed in for the schedule. But don't expect life to be easily healthy. It's not. It's inconvenient to be healthy, full stop. You have to plan yourself. Get out of bed. You get out of bed. You have your breakfast. You do your meditation. You do your affirmations. You set your day up for success. And then the whole day, you're moving. And just so you know something, Murphy's Law, what can go wrong does go wrong the worst possible time. But if you've got the majority of your week planned, you have the agility and the flexibility to counteract that. But if you're just winging it, for the whole week. Training goals, sleep goals, nutrition goals, engaging with your friends goals, having a date night with your wife goals, chatting with the lads, having a lifting session, that goes. So plan yourself for success like you wouldn't work, but do it with nutrition. I know it might feel a bit robotic, but if I didn't plan a date night with my wife, it probably wouldn't happen because the kids get in the way or something else gets in the way. So for me, the one thing I'd say is goals, ideal week, and put as much detail into it. And the next week, you'll just see opportunities in every situation.
I appreciate that. That is really, really powerful. Now, how can people get in touch with you, whether it's for consultancy or whether it's for, you've got an educational portal as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I have a website for professional education for coaches and nutritionists. That's eoinlacyeducation.com, or just on social media. Instagram is probably easiest, at Eoin Lacey Education. And any questions the guys have, feel free to shoot me a message anytime.
Owen, I am so grateful for you coming and sparing some time here and dropping some good knowledge. Hopefully people have got some good things for it. So thank you so much for the time.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for the invite.